Check on the intercom.
Tomcat ball, 16.2. 122, Tomcat ball, 16.1.
I don't remember my mic.
Oh, okay. That's fine. We can use Discord. I was just making sure your SRS was working.
I do hear you. I was just trying to respond, and you weren't responding, so.
Oh, okay. I got kicked, so I'll be right back. I don't know why I always tend to get kicked out of the server the first time I join.
Tomcat ball,
Anyway,
16.1.
Sounds like there was someone landing. I didn't see the landing, but
no. The bike, the button I thought was my mic button is the ball button. Yeah.
I don't know how you'd even do that. That's for the night. Oh, is the carrier turning? No, the carrier's turning. Oh no, it's not. I'm done. Hey, we're having traffic. This is 318 taxiing Cat 2. Overhead traffic 318 shooting Cat 2. Okay, ready when you are. Okay, go ahead and fly your case 1 departure. 500, so keep that in mind for case 1 approaches. 500 feet at the highest.
Oh, I was using the 5-degree line as the 0 line again.
Good.
That happens a lot.
Yeah, no, it's kind of hard to differentiate. Remember, you have your standby one. That one's a bit easier to read. So if you're ever having trouble with that, fall back on it. Either way, I'm not going to be anal about it, so we can stay at this altitude at 7. My tack on. Okay, we're getting close to the 7-mile mark, so go ahead and switch to tack and steering. There we go. Yep, go ahead and see if... Looks like we do have that tack in, so let's go ahead and get to it. Let's see if transmit receive is any better. It's not, so there it is. We are actually right under it, so...
Marco 1-1, Pontiac 4-1, request rejoin. Pontiac 4-1, Marco 1-1, proceed to
12,000 at 350.
12,000 at 250.
Okay, you're reaching 12,000. Okay, here's an STT for you. That should help you. Oh no, that's not him.
Is he in the cloud?
There you go. That should be him on the lock. To our left. He is going to be above us in the clouds. And he is heading kind of towards us, so you're going to have trouble. Actually, let's see. We are going pretty fast though, so we're going to overshoot him here. He's in 3 miles. He's going to be 1,000 feet above us. He's at 12,000 on the dot. Speed 310. Speed 280. Speed 260. Speed 250. Okay, speed up a bit so we can catch up to him. Aim for about 300, 350 right now. There we go. That's why we weren't getting correct TACAN information. It was on X-ray. I'm surprised we were getting anything else. Okay, I have him inside off our 12. Oh no, yeah, that's him. You see him? Okay, you're at 290. Okay. You're going to join up behind him about 20 feet off his left wing, and I'm just going to have you fly formation with him for about 30 seconds before we get the boom out and try to do everything, just so that you can get the feel for it. Okay, you're at 290.
What's he at again? 250?
250. So we're going pretty fast. Yep, we're looking to overshoot here. Don't be too aggressive with slowing down though. Just nice and gentle, and we should be good. Okay, you're at 270 about. 265. 260. 250. You're looking good. So let's just try to keep it here at this speed for a little while. You sped up a little bit, but we're still looking okay. 250, there you go. Perfect. Okay, so let's go ahead and get in position behind the basket. And let's get our probe extended. So remember that's on your left side, kind of left above your knee. There you go. It might need to be in full up position to refuel, I don't know, but either way, go ahead and trim out. Make sure you're nice and steady so you have to do as little input as possible. Little bit to the left so that we're on his left side, not right behind him in his wake. Still going 250, pretty good. Okay. So now let's try to come a bit further off the left and let's get in position behind him. Let's see if he'll give us the basket here.
Ready, pre-contact.
Let's see.
Return pre-contact.
Yeah, not quite. Not close. Okay, we're a little slow. We're at about 245. So we're going to need to come up to like 255 for a good 30 seconds to catch up to him. You're at 255, 260, okay, 255, 255, flowing down to 250, now we're at 253, 55, ease back to 250 right about now.
Ready, pre-contact.
Still don't think we'll get
Clear
this.
contact.
Oh, there we go. We did. Sweet. Okay, now I get to do the smart-ass thing and say use the force loop. Remember, you're just trying to find formation with the tanker for now. Once you get that basket in, you're going to keep that up. Don't try to force the basket in and keep it there. Focus on flying formation. That's going to be your best friend here. So, get it nice and close. And then once we're in a nice stable formation, you're going to get that basket on real quick and then keep flying formation. Don't focus on the basket.
I'm trying to find a good visual reference, but like my pylon is just right in the middle of everything.
Yeah, that's why I say you kind of have to fly formation before you can focus on the basket, right? So just try to. I can give you a little bit of guidance here if you want. Just come a little bit left. There you go. You're looking pretty good. You're going to need to speed up just a little bit to actually get forward enough for the basket. A little bit left. There you go, you're good. Okay, you're a little high. There you go. Good job backing off. That was the safe thing to do. I have noticed that when you get pretty close to the boom, you do tend to get just a little bit high, so you miss it. So try to just keep it a little bit lower and a little bit more left than you tend to do. You went through it on the upper end, so you kind of, there's something called pilot-induced oscillations that are very common when air-to-air refueling, where you're going up and down and up and down. Try to keep steady at one altitude. Pretty hard to do, but make sure you're trimmed and all that before we go back in here. And try to limit your vertical movement by using your throttle, and even your slats if you want, which you don't flaps at this speed. But yeah, I guess not at this speed. But you're mainly going to be worrying about using your throttles to control up and down. So just to get your angle of hack indexer a bit more stable, so that you're not going up and down with pitch. Rather, you're using that actual throttle. Can be kind of hard to do. So now just use your throttle mainly for slowing down. Try not to pitch too much. Very subtle adjustments.
Return free contact.
What's he getting so far? You're 950.
Seems like there's no sweet spot for the trim, which is kind of annoying.
You're having trouble with that. Yeah. If you just want to level off and fly straight for like 5 seconds and engage your autopilot, they'll trim it out for you. And then go ahead and disengage it and rejoin. Okay. That should hopefully have gotten you about as good as you're going to get.
Ready, pre-contact. Clear contact.
Okay, you're at 255. Climb down to 250. Slightly over 250. Go for a rejoin. Down 255. Start easing it back. Get a bit of wake turbulence there. That's okay. And you're at about 250. Seems to be going a little bit over 250. So you're looking pretty good right here. I would aim for about 253, see if that works. 252. So I think he's going a little faster than he advertised. Obvious. So we're still a bit high, and we need to go a little left. Good on the left and right, I think. I'll just oscillate a little bit. Okay, we're good on the altitude. Yeah, you're getting some oscillations there. Steady out before we go forward. A little steadier. Perfect. If you can come forward now.
Oh, dang.
Yeah, watch yourself. Be safe. Be safer. Don't worry about catching basket. There you go. So yeah, I think it's just a little bit more practice with your, because you are getting quite a bit of PO, just pilot-induced oscillations. There's nothing major, but that's what's making it hard for you to hook up with the basket, is that you're going up and down and up and down, and you're going over the basket or under it,
Yep.
right? So it's just practice with that. I'll stay with you here for a good little while longer if you want to keep trying. But I would definitely say you got the basics down. You just need to get a little bit more familiar with flight controls, and that's just practice, right? So. A little bit to the left. There's a good amount of peel. But your formation flying's pretty good. It's just that, like I said, remember, when you're trying to tank, you're not trying to tank, right? It's kind of weird. Your first and foremost objective is to fly formation. You're only tanking for a couple of seconds where you're trying to get that boom in the basket. Besides that, you are waiting until that opportunity and just trying to stay at the same position off his left wing, or in this case, off his left wing. For sure.
Do you know if there's a way to lower my seat?
I do not. I imagine there is, but I actually don't know. There's not a way in the back seat, so maybe there isn't.
Yeah, I'm just all like crunched up in my seat in real life, and I'm just not relaxed at all.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be hard. So you do definitely gotta
Return free contact.
gotta ease into it. I'm terrible at air-to-air refueling, so that's why I sit back here. Neither of our pilot instructors are coming, so I'll, if you want to schedule a one-on-one, you can get some more specific tips that might help you out more. But I'm going to mark you off as completing this lesson, because really this is all we want you to be able to do, is to safely fly formation, right? And you've been pretty safe. You haven't been doing the stupid thing of going up into trying to catch the basket at everyone's wrist, right? So, hey, there's an F-16 refueling in front of us. Nice. I thought that was a terrible sign. But, so I'm marking you off as done with this lesson.
Ready free contact. Clear contact.
Yeah. This is fine. I just need to practice, get used to the Tomcat more.
Yeah.
I've been spoiled by fly-by-wire for a long time.
Yeah, we have a lot of students who are. we have some students who will like when they want to pull up, they will pull immediately full deflection on the elevator and go into like a stall immediately, because you can't do that in Tomcat, and it takes them a long time to grow out of it. So you're flying wonderfully. Just a little bit of PO, but once you manage to get that down and you manage to get your trim all sorted, this seems like it'll be easy as cake for you. Just a little bit of practice. So, like I said, if you want to schedule a one-on-one, be my guest. Sorry that you missed you today. But well, I do believe you fell asleep. little bit off center. I think you were a little bit too far right. I actually can't remember now. And you were coming in pretty good, but I think you started focusing on the basket too soon. I think you started focusing on the basket too soon, so again, just try to fly formation before you hook up. But that was pretty close. I can't really give you any more pointers than that. You're managing your speed really well, which is the main thing. So it's just you're just a little bit off on that throttle, and mainly it's the pitch stuff. Anyways, I'm gonna leave you to it. So, good luck. Hopefully you can take on some fuel.
Little right.
Alright, cool, thanks.
Sure thing.
Little right.
Have a nice day.
See ya.
Contact. You're taking fuel.
Nice, we're in. Fuel 8,500. Reel it in. Little left.
Contact. You're taking fuel.
We're in. Thank you, tanker. We love you. Fuel 10,000. Fuel 11,000. Fuel 12,000. Fuel 13,000. Fuel 14,000. Fuel 15,000. Fuel 16,000. Fuel 17,000. Fuel 18,500. Fuel 19.5.
Transfer complete. Disconnect.
Okay, transfer complete. We can rejoin, reform right.
So first things first, down to the basics. There are two basic modes for the radar, right? There's pulse and there's pulse Doppler. Pulse is the very raw return of your radar, so you aren't going to get any anything on your TID for pulse. You aren't going to get any data link, or you're not going to send out any data link for pulse. It is just the radar directly using pulse, right? Pulse will pick up all the ground clutter. However, it's very good at filtering that ground clutter out based on range to the target, and speed of, not really speed of the target, that's pulse Doppler. But if you have someone locked up in pulse, it is quite hard to lose them in that ground clutter unless they're very, very low in the weeds. On the other hand, pulse Doppler is a mode that uses the Doppler effect to range, and so instead of pulse just getting the range, however it does, pulse Doppler will use that Doppler effect to range and get speed, and it will give you generally a lot more information within that screen. So, however, pulse Doppler uses a lot of extra filters that are not used on the pulse mode. So, for instance, you have a zero Doppler filter, which filters out ground clutter. That would come from essentially a direct return from anything that has a closure rate of plus or minus 100 on the ground speed. Well, it's not really. Yeah, it's mainly based on the closure rate though, not directly on the ground speed. Then you have the main lobe clutter filter, which filters out all of that ground in front of you, and that is based on plus or minus 133 of your ground speed. So a little bit different than the closure rate there. Either way, both of those filters can impact how the radar works. So those two basic modes both have a single target track mode. You can single target track by hooking a track file on the TID and pressing that single target track, and it will attempt to lock up the target. Or you can full action on the radar screen and find a target manually, and track via that. Keep in mind, if you do that whatever mode you're in, whether it's pulse Doppler or pulse, you will need to find them manually, like I said, and then slew over them with half action and full action them, and it will go to the STT mode that you are currently searching in. You can switch modes. Sometimes you will lose a target trying to switch modes, so be very careful about that. I recommend only switching modes when you are at or around 15 miles or above. That way, if you lose the track, you still have time to get it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's the basics of those. Pulse generally takes a lot more knowledge in the backseat to use because it is ranged base and you don't have all these clutters, or all the clutter filters. So it can be quite difficult to use. As far as all of these 5 modes you have, all 4 of these modes are pulse Doppler modes, and this pulse search is your only pulse search mode. So, PD search is pulse Doppler search. It is your most basic pulse Doppler search. You will not get any TID symbology if you are using PD search. However, it is your longest range search. So, you can find really big targets at up to 200 miles in pulse Doppler search. Smaller targets like a fighter, unstealthy fighters that generally have a pretty big radar cross section can show up within 100 miles. Generally, those stealthier fighters will show up at about 60 miles. Something really stealthy like a MiG-21, you might have trouble getting up until 50 or 40 miles even. And you can't tell range in pulse Doppler mode. So, or in pulse Doppler search, rather. It doesn't give you any of that range information, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be restarting this mission periodically because the targets are just getting off my scope. So.
Yeah, no worries, yeah.
Range while scan is the same as pulse Doppler search, except that in that mode, you will get range information on the TID. So each of these legs here is 20 miles, right about. You can see I'm at 100 miles, so ahead of me I can see 100. On the slant I can see about 90. It's about more like 85. But you can use that to estimate the range to the target. You cannot hook a target in RWS, so you can't get range information that way. This is just a radar return that is returning range as well on your TID. But you can estimate range via this. You can also estimate closure rate on the DDD. Right in the middle here is 0 closure rate. So if they are on this cross, you are at risk of being notched by your altitude filter. Plus or minus 100 miles an hour, 100 knots. And then down here is going to be your higher closure rate. So they are coming towards you is like how I like to think about it. I always get these confused, so I try to think about it like that. And if they're up here, they are going away from you. So they're cold. Let me verify that I'm right on that, just in case I'm getting it wrong again. Which I was getting it right. Sweet. So
underneath the sort of the 0, as it were, like the plus, underneath the cross.
Yep, that's hot.
Is en route quickly above. I thought it was the other way around. Jeez, I always thought behind you was, sorry, underneath the cross was.
Yeah, it can be kind of confusing.
Yeah,
if you look at
your speed or going away.
Yeah, like I said, if it's closer to you is hot. That's how I think of it.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that works.
If you ever forget, just look at your TID. If you put it in ground stabilized mode, you'll get an accurate picture of their velocity vector.
Yeah.
So you can see that he is coming towards me here. He's hot.
Yeah.
If you go in aircraft stabilized, this is a course corrected velocity vector. So he is still coming hot to me. However, this is much more confusing to read. It happens to be the same right now, but this takes a lot more practice to read. This is essentially their closure rate to you rather than their direct vector, right? So if they're going away from you, but you're closing on them because you're going faster than them, it will still come directly back towards you.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Can be a little confusing, but either way.
I think you should say it in your head first, haven't you, before looking at it. So below is close and hot. above is potentially going away and possibly slower or
Yeah,
faster.
so it's just closure
Faster.
rate up here, right?
Yeah.
You can switch this closure rate to ×4, and that exaggerates this closure rate scale. And this aspect doesn't really matter, but what it does is it moves the scales, right? So on nose, the plus is your 0, right?
Mhm.
On beam, below the plus is your 0, it moves down 1. And then in tail, your 0 is all the way down here. So so you can track things in with different closure rates based on that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Good to know. Note to self there.
in pulse search, like I said, you get the raw returns of the radar. So you have to look at the screen and figure out what the target is here. In order to do this, what I would do is I would move the radar dish up, so you're not getting ground clutter to look at.
Yeah.
I would reduce the range to 50 miles or so because I know my target's within 50 miles. And I would estimate that looks like I'm getting a pretty good brick right here that's actually moving a little. So if I lock that up and I go into my TV here and I zoom in, let's see if I got a target, and I did, right?
Yeah.
So with pulse, it's mainly a factor of how you are, where your elevation is looking at, and then you manually picking out the target. It can be very useful to be able to do that in a fight, because pulse, if they're notching you, pulse is the way to go.
Can you the IFF in pulse
Yeah, you can IFF in any mode.
on all of them? Okay.
So if you IFF in pulse, like I'm doing right now, without having anything STT'd, it's going to IFF everything, right? So
Everything.
it's going to be confusing, right?
Yeah.
If I IFF my target here, let me pick him up in TWS so I can just do it the easy way. There we go. So if, why can't I hook you? There you go. So if I get him in a pulse STT here and I IFF him, I'm not going to get anything back. That means he's enemy, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Meanwhile, if I get him in a PD STT, which is actually having trouble doing right now because he is too close, it will be less clutter on the screen because it's focused on him with your Doppler filters. You're not getting any ground returns from behind him unless you have the main lobe clutter filter off, which we'll go over in a bit. But if I go ahead and PD STT him and I IFF him, you'll notice no bars. That means enemy, right?
Yeah.
A friendly will have a bar above them and a bar below them. It looks kind of like a sandwich.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we'll go over all that again in a bit, right? So that's pulse for you. TWS, which is track while scan, is a different mode that is used for simultaneous engagement or for keeping track of multiple targets while still engaging one. It allows you to see while still shooting a missile off, right? This is only usable with your Phoenixes. As far as actually engaging targets goes, of course, you can still use track while scan before that, but your Phoenixes actually are the factor that make it able to be used with a missile. But there's two modes: there's track while scan manual and there's track while scan auto. These are both the same, except that your azimuth and elevation controls in track while scan auto are automatically controlled by the computer to give you the best picture of as many air threats as possible. So if you have the screen and you just have one target and you feel like there's no more targets, putting it to TWS auto is pretty good so that you can limit your manual input needed to keep that target, right? If I wasn't inputting here, he's at 6,000. My range bars, he's still easily within my range, but I'm going to lose him here eventually. TWS auto is going to elongate that time before I lose him.
Mhm.
However, TWS auto does have its limitations. It will not search for new contacts very well if you already have a contact. It will prioritize keeping that one contact, right?
Yeah.
So if you ever need to look for something, switch to TWS manual. Then you can do your elevation controls however you want, your azimuth controls however you want,
Mhm.
right? And that allows you a lot more
Freedom.
Yeah,
Does it
a
still
lot more
hold?
freedom,
Does it still?
a lot more.
Does it still hook the first one, even if you change from auto to manual? Does it
Yeah,
still
so
keep
you can
on?
still see them. It's still the same radar, but
Yeah.
if I slew over to the left here, my trackless scan is going to lose that target,
Gonna
right?
lose that. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
So as long as you're in, as long as you keep him in the range and within the altitude selected, then
so long as he doesn't notch you, which is
yeah,
possible, right?
yeah,
So
true, yeah.
we'll go over that later.
Or go
But
behind you. Yeah.
yeah, and or if he's behind you, which is why I lost him.
Mm.
So yeah, that's the basics of TWS. In PD search, RWS, and pulse search, you have more options for your azimuth scan and your elevation bars, right? So if I go to range wall scan here, and I go to 8 bar 65-degree scan, this is the widest and tallest scan you can have. You can see that the radar does it, no problem, right? If I go to TWS, you'll notice that suddenly my scope is limited. This is because TWS needs to have a track file generated every I think it's 2 seconds, right? So if you don't see a contact for 2 seconds, your track while scan can't effectively keep track of it. So in order to limit this, the most it can do is a 40-degree scan at 2 bars. So you can do a wider scan. You just have to be at 2 bar, or a 4-degree scan at 20 bar. Of course, you can limit it more if you want. Actually, it doesn't let you. I didn't know that. Interesting. But you can't do a 65-degree scan. You can't do 8 bar with a TWS search no matter what. And depending on which bar you have and which as scan you have here, it will vary what you can do here, right? So do keep that in mind. TWS is more limited in your searching function. TWS also can give track tones for the other pilot. It usually doesn't, but if you only have one enemy you're looking at, sometimes TWS will focus on the enemy way more than it should, and they will read it as a track.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. So if you're ever flying formation and your buddy behind your wingman behind you's buddy spiking you, probably they're in TWS. And since you're that close and you're really the main thing on their radar, they're gonna be pinging you like crazy, and it'll sound like they're even tracking you, right?
Okay.
Usually out far, that's not an issue.
Yeah.
If you lob a Phoenix at a reasonable range, the Phoenix is gonna go pitbull well before that happens. So
Yeah.
don't worry about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Just
Okay.
something to consider.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yep. Another thing to note while in TWS is that it does generate a track file on your TID, no matter which TWS mode you're in. So you will get a lot of information about the target in TWS mode. So let's go to TWS Auto so I don't have to do anything. It will try to keep both of these targets in the scope, but it's going to lose this one pretty fast because it's going to prioritize this one.
Yeah. And why is it prioritizing the
Because this one's in launch range and he's hot, so the computer's going to read this as more of a threat.
And the other
for
one's
me.
turning right, as it were, or his
Yep.
turning,
So
turning right to him.
if I go ahead and fence in here in the pilot seat, I have Phoenixes selected. You'll notice that it doesn't even have launch cues on this one because this one's just too close and too and not hot to me, so it doesn't really see this one, so to speak. I could say next launch and force it to.
Yeah.
but that really doesn't make too much sense for me, right? And if I had 2 Phoenixes on board, it would also be targeting this guy as the second target automatically,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. Yeah.
Let's active pause so at least I'm not moving. But anyways, in TWS you get a whole bunch more information. You get this range, you get the closure rate here, you get the altitude. The closure rate's going to be bugged right now because I'm in active pause, so
Mhm.
it thinks we're going 400 IAS. But you can also get the ground speed of the target at 430. So if I compare his ground speed to my ground speed,
What did you press then?
speed.
Just in TWS, just press speed on
Yeah,
the
on the
hook
cap.
target. Yeah, on the cap,
Um,
and it will give you the ground speed.
Yep.
Okay, didn't know that.
So you can see it thinks that we're at like 434 and he's
Yeah.
at like 430. So since he's so hot, it's not much of an issue. But yeah, you can get a ton of information. One thing to note, BR is not bearing. It's not course or heading rather. It is bearing, right? So if I say that he's 360 to us, that means he's ahead of us, not that he's
Mhm.
north, right? Kind of confusing. Sometimes you'll also get BL, which is bearing left. That means that instead of being on the right side of the aircraft, he's on the left side, which actually, yeah, it's so now he's right ahead of us, BR0.
On the nose.
Um,
Yeah.
359 is still to the left. Sometimes Tomcat's kind of finicky in which one it gives you, but in general, keep in mind that this bearing you can't really give to the pilot unless you just want to say he's at 12 o'clock or something, right? You can
Yeah.
say bearing 0. But if you compare that bearing to the course, you can do some math and figure out the bearing to the target. What I like to generally do is I like to estimate. So let's say he's over here. I'd say he's about 30 degrees off my left. 30 degrees off my left is going to be 280. So I'm just
Mhm.
going to estimate that for him. And I'm going to give
Yeah.
my pilot that. But you can do math if you want to be more accurate and figure out the actual course instead of the bearing, right?
Yeah.
That's the main stuff. Of course, this gives you a lot of information. But really, those are all the main things that you need. Like you can hit altitude and it'll also give you the ground speed apparently. You can try all of these things if you like. We can pick up a new target and try these things on that, which I didn't intend to, but you can even get his lat long if you wanted to give his coordinates out.
What about if you pressed HDG number 8?
Heading. So that gives his heading. So not
Yeah.
the heading that you're looking at him at. Though it's pretty close in this
That's
case.
close actually, isn't it?
Yeah,
Is that-
so actually, no, am I heading? No, he's definitely not heading 320.
No, he
Interesting.
should be heading the reciprocal
About
almost.
18, yeah, about 180.
So that could so pressing 8 could give you his heading.
So it's definitely not his heading because his heading's 3.
Yeah.
Oh no, actually it could be.
It's quite close.
Yeah, it might be his heading. Here, let me actually clear. If his bearing is 10, then no, because his bearing should be 10 for that. So I'm not. I always thought that was his heading. I thought there wasn't a way to get your heading to him, but maybe. I'll have to mess
It's
around
the
with it.
I mean, it's always best to say maybe 10 degrees right. Might be simpler for the pilot.
Yeah. So right now I would say he's at 330 because it's 20 degrees right.
Yeah, which is actually quite close to the.
Yeah, and you can see now it says his heading is 292, which definitely isn't right. So
Yeah.
that might be his heading. No, that wouldn't make sense. Yeah, not quite sure what that means.
Worth looking. Worth looking at in terms of watching it and seeing
Yep.
what.
Yep.
When you're
Anyways,
flying,
let's go over the TID symbology. So up here you have your data blocks. You have 4 data blocks here to get a whole bunch of stuff. Pretty useful. It varies depending on what you're doing. And above that, if you're inputting anything, it will give you the input, right? In AC stabilized mode, you'll notice that you lose this line. This is just your kind of your situational awareness roll line, right? This box here will also appear on attack. This is your steering centroid for the pilot, so it's telling him kind of, this is the radar centroid actually, so it's kind of basing the radar around this point. Since we only have one target, it's looking straight at him, but if there was another target back here, it would center here and try to get them both, and that'll change. And then there's also an X sometimes. The X is the steering centroid for the pilot, where it wants them to go to get a lock. So if I STT him, it'll... Nope, not right now. So sometimes it'll give you that X. That's just a steering centroid. I don't worry about it too much. But if your pilot wants to follow it, it should give him optimal steering. I think it only works outside of a range where it's not where the Phoenix is actually needing to loft, which at this range it wouldn't.
Yeah. What is the LT?
LT, I always forget. Oh, sorry. So yeah, that's the same as BR, I think, but it's left. No, I don't think that's right.
Okay.
I don't use it.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever it is, I forget. I'm sure you could find it on the manual.
Yeah.
This over here is your radar elevation. If you are half actioned anywhere on the TID, this top number is the max range or the max altitude that you're scanning. So this is 20,000 feet. The bottom is the bottom of your scan. So this is 0. If I manually move my radar up, for instance, this can be changing, of course, but generally, if your radar is pointing forward, you're going to see the ground at any reasonable range. You'll notice that the closer you get, the narrower that cone is, just because of how the radar works. So you'll need to be more precise up close, right? He's at 7,000, so I can still see him, but if I move my radar up, not too much, just a bit, I'll lose him here. Like right there, I'll lose him in just a second. There we go. That X means that it is now an extrapolated track file. So if I had launched a Phoenix on him, the Phoenix would be tracking that until it goes Mad Dog and tries to get the target.
Okay.
This middle number here is your actual elevation. So that's the degrees that your radar is pointing up or down. If you're in stab mode, which you generally should be, your radar is going to be stabilized on the horizon. So 0 is going to be looking at the horizon, right? If you are if you're plus 3 degrees, your main lobe clutter filter will automatically turn out. So that is quite useful. We'll go over it in more detail later, but generally, if you're in a lookup attitude, where your target's above you, they're going to have a very, very hard time notching you. So there you go. These two numbers here are just random numbers kind of that let you know that your screen isn't frozen up. These are like computer numbers.
Yep.
So you'll see them cycling around. If either of them stops completely, in theory, your screen's probably frozen. Doesn't happen in DCS, but in theory.
Yep.
This 601 is your closure rate. So you can see here that I believe in beam that this starts at 0 right here. So 0, 200, 400, 600, 800. In nose, this starts at 200, or it starts at 0 on the actual deck. So 200, 400. That's not right because it starts, no, on beam it starts on the deck, sorry. In nose it starts at 200. And in tail it starts at negative 200. So yeah, that's closure rate right over there. Right here you have Phoenixes. If it is highlighted, that means your master arm is on. Otherwise it will tell you what armament your pilot has selected for you.
Yep.
The RIO in the backseat really only has control over Phoenixes. I think you can maybe launch Sparrows if you have like an SDT track, but generally that's your pilot's job anyway. You
Yeah.
might be launching Phoenixes. If it's anything else, your pilot's going to handle it.
Okay. Yep.
So let's hop into a different mission here, and I'll show you a bit more TID symbology. So, where is it? It should be this one. Okay. Let's get fenced in, just so we have that. And you'll notice it has 0 Phoenixes there, still Master Arm on, but yeah. So, let's go to TWS. And you'll notice here that I am actually getting energy on my screen, but I am not getting any target returns. If I go to pulse search here, I should get some target returns. I'm in a pretty high bar scan, so let's see. Nope. Pulse search, oh yeah, there we go. I'm getting a little return right out here. Pulse search is not very sensitive, so it can have trouble picking things up very far. But you'll notice here that I'm just getting energy from these 2 targets. And that's because these 2 targets are both in my notch filters. So if I turn out the main lobe clutter filter, I should pick up one of these targets because he is in my main lobe clutter. If I turn it back to auto or even to manually on, it will not pick him up. We still have his track file here for a second, but we're about to lose it. The reason for this is because of he is going horizontal to us, and his ground speed is going to be quite similar to us. So you can see his speed is 300, our speed is 314, so plus or minus 133. And generally, if he's coming hot to you or going cold to you, not going cold to you, but going hot to you, you'll kind of break through that main lobe clutter filter, right? But if he's going horizontal or cold at a similar speed, you're going to have a lot of trouble picking him up. This other guy is actually in our altitude filter. So the altitude filter you cannot turn off. It's always on. It's mandatory for the radar to work correctly. And this is a closure rate of plus or minus about 100 knots. So that means that he is going my same speed away from me, right? He can't, if he's coming towards me, his closure rate can't be, because we're obviously going faster than 100 knots. If we're not, like let's say he's a helicopter and he's hovering and we're going at him at 80 knots, you might be able to get him in your altitude filter, but obviously that's not really feasible to do, right? That's going to be quite hard. So, so this guy on the right is in our altitude filter. We're not going to pick him up until we speed up, or until he speeds up. You'll notice here that he is speeding up here. So I should get him here in a second. His energy just came, is still pronounced, but I just got him, right?
Oh, there, yeah, okay, yeah.
Yep. So, and if we hook him, his closure rate is negative 170, 150, hovering around that area. And now he's actually, looks like he might be, no, he's turning is what he's doing. So now I just lost him again because I believe I got him in he turned into the main lobe clutter filter. I still don't have him on the radar, so yep, I'm losing him on the TID. And now I've picked him up again because he is going horizontal to me. So he would be in the main lobe clutter filter right now if his ground speed was too similar to mine.
Yeah.
But you can see our closure rate here is pretty high, so we're fine, right? So ways to counter notching. This beautiful switch right here, main lobe clutter filter, is amazing for countering notching. However, if you look at land, you will get all of the land returns, right? So when you switch out this main lobe clutter filter, you need to either be able to pick out from the hundreds of targets that are going to be appearing on your TID, because it'll actually be up to 60. I think the TID can, actually, I think it's 20. I think you can track 60, but it's only 20 that it makes a track file of. But
Still a
You'll
lot.
need to either be able to pick all that out and hit next attack, next launch, and it'll be kind of a mess, or you need to be looking up from at the target, or there needs to be something like an ocean behind the target, because the ocean really doesn't give return.
Mm.
So that makes everything considerably easier. Otherwise, you're going to want to keep the main lobe clutter filter on, and you're going to want to manage your speed with your pilot to make sure that you're not getting into those notch filters.
Yeah.
For altitude, the altitude filter, you're going to need to speed up. There's not a way to turn it off, like I said. So that's your only option, is to speed up or slow down so that your closure rate is different enough to get him on the radar.
Yeah.
The other option is to just go into pulse. Pulse doesn't have these filter issues, right? So if I go into pulse, I can always find a target so long as the pulse radar is capable of actually finding him, right? And there we go. I locked up that guy. He's at 51 miles. So now I can function at pulse. I want to say that launching a Phoenix at this range in pulse isn't the best idea, but you could try it. You may lose a target in pulse at this range because it's much more sensitive to ground clutter. In pulse Doppler, if he's in my filter, I can't get a pulse Doppler lock, so I don't even have the option. But if I manage my range, my speed gates and all that, I should be able to do a pulse Doppler lock, which would be much more comfortable at this range,
Right.
and
Okay.
more accurate at this range.
Yeah.
These two switches do nothing, as far as I know. They do something in the actual Tomcat, but nothing in this game. This gate is target size. This affects when the Phoenix will actually pit bull.
Okay.
So, if I'm on normal, it will pit bull at 10 nautical miles, right? Nice and easy.
Yeah.
Small will do 6 miles, and large will do 14 miles. So plus or minus 4 from normal, depending on how big the target is.
Yeah.
This allows you to control your engagement a bit more. So let's say I'm going up against 5 enemy jets, and I still want to shoot missiles at them, but I only have 4 Phoenixes. What I would probably do to get them defensive earlier is I would put it in large, right? And that reduces my kill probability, but my missile will go pitbull and they'll have to go defensive faster so that I can get an advantage and I can maybe lob a sparrow at that 5th target, right?
Yeah.
And then I'll have to go and try to kill any who survive the Phoenixes. If otherwise, let's say I'm going against 1 target and I still want to launch in TWS to not give him missile launch tones, I can launch in small. And this means that he's going to be able to probably lock me up and get a missile off on me. However, my missile is going to have a much higher hit probability because he's going to have just like 15-30 seconds to go defensive in that small range gate. And if I splash him, or if he has to go defensive, if he doesn't have any Fox 3s, if I'm going against most Russian aircraft, like a MiG-29 or a MiG-21 or something, they're going to be using Fox 1s on me, unless they're super close, in which case this doesn't really apply. But they're not going to be able to continue guiding that missile onto me, so I'm going to be actually pretty safe from that missile, even though they're getting a spike on me, right?
Yeah.
As long as I launched in a reasonable time. So that's what the range gate does. In Pulse, there is this Pulse video and this Pulse gain. You can use this to help you out. So, for instance, if I put the gain up, you can see this target is easier to see whenever it hits the bar. And if I put the erase up, it's going to make the target disappear faster. So if I put the erase down, come on, down. I need to be, there we go. Then when I get him, he's going to stay on the screen longer, right?
Yeah.
That makes it a bit easier to keep track of him. And if I put the pulse scan all the way down, this is going to be much more sensitive, or much less sensitive. So it's going to, yeah, it still picks them up, but
Yeah.
If I only wanted to pick up targets that are big, for instance, you can turn the pulse scan down, or you can turn it up if you want to pick up much more. You also have your range gates here. These only work in pulse. When you IFF, by the way, it on pulse Doppler, it will keep everything where it's at, but it will change based on range, actually. Pulse, it will stay the same. All of this stuff doesn't do anything. These don't do anything. These are like electric countermeasure modes. Let's see what they say even. Altitude difference, SPL. So sorry, these are anti-countermeasure modes. So
No function, yeah.
yeah, none of those work. All of this we've been showing you. Here's your IFF button if you want to click that. This IR stuff is for the old IR TV. We don't use that. This missile channel and X-mitter channel would be used to deconflict phoenixes so that you're not jamming each other accidentally, but really not an issue in DCS. That's about it for long-range radar, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you want to unstabilize the radar, which I don't really recommend, but you can do it, you can hit this switch. You can control your azimuth and your elevation here. I have keybinds for it, so I like to center them. However, there is 2 azimuth controls, so this can be different from your. Oh no, that's the elevation. I guess it can't be. Never mind. And then this VSL low and high is your ACM mode. So you'll notice here that if you look at my radar elevation here,
Mm-hmm.
I'm in VSL low, so it's scanning from about 20 down to -10, right? And that's scanning just ahead of me. So if I go in the pilot seat here, it's just scanning where this triangle is going, right?
Yep.
So this is good if I'm in the clouds and I'm turning and I'm trying to find a target that's in front of me, maybe a little bit below me. I can do this, and this is a pretty good way to try to find a target. There's also a PAL mode in the front seat, so you can, their pilot can use that, but it's more limited in elevation. VSL high, on the other hand, if I go on the pilot seat, you won't even see it because it's too high, but it goes from 20 up to 50. So if you're in a turn fight, let's say you're chasing a guy, you're pulling a lot of G's, you can try going in VSL high so that you can try to lock him up before you get to him. It's not necessary, but it can help your pilot out.
Does the
Whoa, Iceman, what are you doing?
Does the pilot have that capability as well with VSL?
Yes. So
Yeah,
I
okay.
believe the let's see. Yep, yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Oh, no,
it's
not
actually
Jester.
yeah, it's
Jester.
Jester in this case. So he doesn't.
So,
However, yeah, he does because of this. So target
that-
designate
yeah,
down.
yeah,
That does it
yeah,
apparently.
yeah.
Generally the RIO is going to hit it though. I've
Yeah.
never known a pilot to go in VSL. Pilot has a different mode called PAL, which is very, very useful. VSL has a range of 5 miles. PAL has a range of, I think, 15 miles. There's also another mode called manual rapid lock-on. It is this funky looking mode right here. It is very difficult to use. If you'll notice, it takes up the whole radar elevation that we have available to us on this one screen. So, and obviously it has all your azimuth as well. So to use this, you need a very, very good understanding of the radar. If you really want to learn this, you can practice it, and I'm sure it can be very useful. For instance, if there's a target way up here and he's still in my elevation, and you can guess his elevation relative to the horizon, or you can be unstabilized and guess it relative to your airplane, and say, let's say he's 60 degrees up, I can go up here and say his azimuth is 15, so I can go right here, and I can try to lock him up here, right? Very, very difficult. This is most useful if there's someone right ahead of you, or slightly to your left, right? But your normal elevation is only going to be, a bar scan is only going to be like 8 bar. So if I half action and let the radar do its thing, let's go to PD search. You can see here that in an 8 bar scan, it only goes up very little relative to that. So this is very, very broad and hard to use. And it only has a range of 5 miles. So again, very difficult to use. You can use it if you want. That's called a manual rapid lock-on.
Yeah, I would. Within 5 miles, I think I'd rely on PAL or whatever and leave it up front, and I'll just keep my eyes out the window.
Yep. MRL is only, like I said, if they're directly in front of you. So you can just do that. Very easy. And VSL would generally work for that unless they're slightly off center. Or if you are very good with the radar and they're very high off bore, then PAL and VSL won't be able to do anything. So that's what this mode is for, in theory.
Yeah.
As far as radar theory goes, I think that's about everything. So let's go ahead and restart the mission, and I will show you all the data link symbols that you're really going to need. So on your TID, there are 2 symbols for one plane, right? If you have a data link. I don't have data link, so actually, where's my cursor? There we go. So let's turn the main lobe clutter out so that I'm going to lose this guy here no matter what, but I should pick up this guy out here. Let me get him in range. So, on your TID, you've seen a lot of this so far, but there is a lot of functionality that I haven't explained, so I'm just going to explain it explicitly so that you understand it. Of course, there's all the waypoints, and I already showed you all of those that are going to be static on your TID. There's going to be altitude rounded to 10,000 feet on the left side, and the voice code, which we went over last week. I just realized Marlowe isn't here still. Holy shit. So anyways, so yeah, this is range in 20 miles, like I said. If your range is limited, then obviously this is going to change. And at 400, it only goes out to, it looks like 200. Yeah, it's about 160, I think, actually. But all of that is quite useful. Then you'll notice we have a box on top. The top is your radar contact. This is what your radar will actually use. So you cannot lock a missile on just a data link target. You have to have it on radar before you can shoot a missile, obviously. So if you're ever trying to hook something up and trying to PD STT it or something like that, and you're like, why isn't this working? Odds are you just have a data link contact and your radar doesn't know where to look. So you'll have to move the radar manually.
There's the classic line, isn't there? That's that you have a contact on your radar, but you can't lock it. It means that your radar can see it, but your radar cannot see it.
Well,
which is
I don't know what you mean by that, but if it's on your TID, yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, your TID. Because a lot of people call this the radar. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the data link contact, but it's not your radar contact.
Yep. So, on the bottom is going to be a data link contact. This box here, the square, means unidentified, right? So that's a bogey. If I come to my cap here, I can identify this guy. If I IFF him, I can tell he's an enemy, so I can mark him as a hostile, right? And then he's this triangle shape.
Yep.
If I mark him as a friendly, he's nice and round. He's friend-shaped, right? Or I can mark him as a do not attack, for instance. This means that no matter what he is, so even if I mark him as a hostile, my computer doesn't want to shoot at him, right? I think even if I press next launch, which I don't have Phoenixes selected, but even if I press max launch and I had Phoenixes, it doesn't want to shoot this guy until you undesignate it. There's also TCS tracks. They're pretty hard to do, but if you go into a PSTT, let's see if I can get him here. Nope, he's getting in my filter still. Let's see if I can get him. I can get this guy actually. Let's get in Pulse STT. So if you have the TCS slaved to the radar, so right now the TCS is slaved, and you go into TV, it will automatically be looking at him. He is through clouds, unfortunately, but oh no, he's off center too much. So, let's do right 30 degrees. Let's see if I can actually get him here. There we go. So now we can see him. You can see that the dashed line and the solid line are on top of each other. That's because they're slaved. And if you have it just on the TCS, so let's say I lost the radar lock, and I still have him on the camera system for whatever reason. It's quite unusual, but it can happen. This will kind of go sideways and it'll be an arrow. So let me make sure this is on auto. Let's see if it maintains it. I think it tried, but it failed because he's too off center. So, oh well. But like I said, very unusual. It'll just be kind of a sideways triangle. So if you ever see that, that means that your camera system has it locked up, but you do not on your radar, right?
Yep.
And that there is technically a whole bunch of symbols for that. There's like there's angle tracking that says you're getting altitude by angle, and range. There's a whole bunch of symbols that kind of deviate what you're seeing there, but very rare in DCS. So if you're interested in that, look into it on your own time.
Yep, no worries.
Like I said, data link targets are on the bottom. You can you're getting a track file from another aircraft, so you can still hook it, and you can see things like its speed, its altitude, and obviously you can see its azimuth on this. So you can find him on your own radar, hopefully, using all of that information. I actually don't know what this IN stands for. Inches. Yes, this is...
INS?
I doubt it. Here, let's see. Yeah, it is actually, you're right. So if you switch to the attitude heading reference system, it goes AH, and IM means it's using your IMU as your main system. So yeah, you're right. Turn that on, because gesture's terrible. As far as... Oh yeah, there's also an auxiliary mode, auxiliary data link. So if we switch down, we tune to a frequency, we can link to up to 4 Tomcats. I think this address goes up to, it goes up to 9. So you can have 10 addresses here, but only 4 Tomcats can use it at the same time, I believe. You'll still get data link stuff, so it's all kind of the same, but you'll be sharing it between Tomcats, so it'll be a bit less reliable because they might lose log, they might get notched easier than an E3, stuff like that.
Yep. I actually read about that. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So only on the basics, I wondered what the dial was.
The dial, yeah, this is just your address, so it's not very important. It's just your auxiliary data link address. I think it's also your address for the normal data link, which might be why it has so many numbers. But you only need 4 numbers for the auxiliary data link, and it doesn't matter for the normal data link in DCS.
Yeah.
I think that is our lesson done.